Welcome back to the Microsoft Partner Network Thought Leader Podcast series. In part 2 of this 2-part interview, we continue our talk with Jo Burston about the importance of encouraging women to become entrepreneurs and how society should do that.
Okay, please carry on.
So I went and I sat down with a dear friend of mine who's an entrepreneur, and I said to her, will you help me? And she said, of course I will. I said, well, I would like you to become the chair of my advisory board, and I'll create an advisory board, and I'm going to start a business that addresses all of these issues, diversity, inclusion, access to technology, the opportunity of entrepreneurship as a career choice. And I gathered 50 Australian influential women entrepreneurs together, and I wrote our first title, which is called Australia's 50 Influential Women Entrepreneurs. And I wanted the world to see that there are these role models everywhere, and you just need to find them. And when you find them, you need to elevate them and illuminate them and celebrate them and share the stories of their own journeys and enable them to be these role models. And I thought a lot about the fact that you can't be what you can't see. And because these young women and girls at the school had not seen entrepreneurs, they didn't know it existed. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a right or wrong. It was just that was the script that they had in their heads. And through the voices of these 50 women, I became this conduit of this message. So I could stand between corporate and government and academia and other entrepreneurs and really, put a loudspeaker around the stories of these women, and it was really well received. So the business model was formed, and the 4 pillars of our model include mentor programs. So we match mentorees with entrepreneurs, and there's a platform that does that. We've got technology that's built that does that. We give women access to funding and help them understand how to become investable, or if they do really need investing in, and get them more financial literate around their businesses, but also getting them to see that capital raise is not always necessary. Sometimes you just need to understand your business model and the fundamentals of the financial side of it to work out whether you really need to be funded, or you just need to be more cautious about debtors, or you just need to be more aggressive with sales, or you just need to be more mindful that it's your job as the CEO and founder to look after the financials of the business, not your accountants. We also provide education. So I've just finished building another business, which is a SaaS company. It's an EdTech company, and it teaches in a blended learning environment the mindset of entrepreneurship in curriculum in schools. So we're going into schools at the end of this year, and that will be targeting 12 to 17-year-old girls and boys to learn entrepreneurship. We also provide that education outside of schools, and anyone that wants to learn it can also learn it. It's a blended learning environment. The genesis for that was driven by my business partner, Dr. Richard Seymour. He's the head of entrepreneurship and innovation at Sydney University, and he's been teaching grassroots entrepreneurship in right through Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Burma, and parts of India for the last 10 years. And this year alone, 10,000 women will go through his school, which is incredibly impressive.
Wonderful.
And when I met him a few years ago, he told me what he was working on, and I thought, wow, this is someone who really is making a difference, and I want to work with someone like that. So I've taken all of his methodology and learning and built that into a technical blended learning environment and gamified it and socialised it. So it becomes really engaging for kids and adults. But the main thing is that we know from the data from the education business that he's been running is that there's a very high percentage of people that go through the course that start a business, a very, very high percentage that, in fact, 87% that still have a business 2 years later. And there's a really high percentage of women that are then reinvesting that 90 cents in every dollar back into their own families and communities. So it becomes a perpetual and self-sustainable learning environment. And we know that people don't want to be taught, they actually want to learn. And by learning through passion versus learning through right and wrong or pass and fail or yes and no, and learning through us try to reflect, we're seeing the results through his work come to fruition in those Southeast Asian countries already. And then the last pillar for us is community and resources and tools. So this global community now is that just over 30,000 women and their supporters, and I started this 20 months ago, which means that we've addressed something pretty real and hot and important. But it's about how they communicate with each other and how they help each other solve problems and how they are in it together and how they are supporting as a tribe. And I think what we've done very, very successfully and very well is encourage diversity and inclusion. And in the community at the moment, we've got mentors who are guys. We've named 25 of our first 100 ambassadors globally. 50% of those are men. We've got, my advisory board is 50% male. All of our events are open to both men and women attending. And as a result of that, globally, 54% of our readership is male.
Wow.
So the message was really clear for me day one, and that was, we're not a women's organisation. It's an organisation that supports women entrepreneurs, and that support comes from all diversities. Mm-hmm. So I do get very frightened when I walk into a room or an event where it's only women, because I do think that we've got to have everybody in the room, all cultures, all ages, both genders, all sexual orientation, because everyone matters and because all of the views of everyone matter to me when we're growing this community. So we're 20 months down the line. I've built the business, the EdTech company, and then I met a guy called Stephen Fielding, who's one of the heads of US SMB Microsoft marketing and communications. And he invited me to a Microsoft VIP dinner in New York last November. And he put a table together of, I think probably about 20 really influential female entrepreneurs and SMB experts and women of great wisdom. And he talked to us about what those challenges were. And at this particular table topic, they wanted to talk about capital raising, and there were some people there that talked about, that was really difficult for women. I think it is. I think there's still a lot of men making decisions in that space. But I also think that there's really good money for any good business if the entrepreneur at the front believes and backs herself and has a tribe that will back her equally. So I met Steve and I shared my vision and story with him, and we immediately could see that Microsoft would be a great channel and a partner to take what we're doing all over the world, but particularly into the US. So we've been working on that together for the last 6 months, and I'm pleased to say that we'll be rolling out in the US later this year.
Oh, how exciting.
It is, and really with a lot of the support of both the male and female executives of the business, which I think is incredibly encouraging. Mm-hmm. So going back to, I guess, why there's a lot of money to be made taking women entrepreneurs seriously, we know in the US just alone that of our 30-odd thousand in the community, 14% of that's US-based, and it's totally organic growth. We haven't done any marketing there whatsoever yet. And that represents around, it's around 3,500 businesses. And they're high-caliber, high-growth companies. Some of them are $100 million companies. Most of them are over $10 million in revenue. And I think there's always been this perception that sometimes women-led companies are market stall businesses, or they're lifestyle companies, or they're just businesses to replace salaries. But the next generation of women are not seeing things that way. They're seeing two things. They've either got really stellar careers and they're great industry experts and they've got incredible professional talent and skill. They're going to have a family and they're deciding they're not going to go back to the hungry ghost.
Right.
And they're deciding then to start something that fits around their flexibility and their need for flexibility. And the other thing is the next generation, which I'll share with you what we did there, this Gen Y is seeing the world differently. You know, they are technology enabled. They're technology creators. Mm-hmm. They're seeing the world as a global marketplace. They know that if they have a mobile phone and a connection to the internet, they can do business anywhere in the world and they can talk to anywhere in the world. And they're not frightened of making mistakes. So the second title I published was on the 19th of November last year, and it's called If She Can, I Can. And it's the story of 29 Gen Y women entrepreneurs, so our next generation. And I've written that in the first person, so it enables the reader to really go on the journey with them. You know, some of them are social enterprises, some of them are not-for-profit, some of them are highly commercial. But we take you through the journey of their ideation, their first website, their first customer, their first mistakes, you know, what they had to try and do to overcome the challenges. And we've made it into a playbook. So at the end of every one of the 29 chapters, you can listen through her voice what her lessons were and what her learnings were to take with you to your business. And then I've laid that in with Dr. Richard Seymour's notes as an academic and given me the business perspective of what the real lessons are there as well. And then at the end of that, there's a space where you can write your own notes and you can start to jot down what you would do or change or think about if you had your own business or in the current business you own. So it's a really practical insight into reality of business. The smallest company is sort of just starting out. The largest is a $250 million company.
Wow.
And I chose the spectrum because I wanted people to see that success is self-defined and impact and the measurement of success can be done in all different ways. And that could be how you affect a community, how you affect, you know, the wellness of your investors and stakeholders and their back pockets. Or it could just be because you need to impact the family and your community that you're living in. And it's often that I use the word influence over wealth because I think influence is a greater commodity and it's a currency that I think everyone should be measured on in some format or another. So that book has been incredibly successful. And again, I've created this new, you know, generation of role models. And, you know, the mission was to get that book into every school that I could get it into. And we've used those women in that book then to be the case studies for the online learning environment as well. So they're hearing from real people, they're reading real stories, and they can continue to follow the journeys. We then went one step further again, and you know, you probably realise I do things quick. But I wanted to then revisit and do this 360 and revisit the school again and really change that script. So I found 12 kids from all over the world who are now running companies.
Wow.
And again, some of them are social enterprises and some of them are for-profit businesses. The biggest one's about a $500,000 company.
Wow.
They all started their businesses when they were between the ages of 8 and 17. And we called them Brilliant Business Kids. And that title is has just published and we'll formally launch it on the 6th of August this year in Australia with along with that learning environment, which is called startup.business. So we blended real stories with technology that can scale and fueled by purpose and passion to get entrepreneurship as seen as a career choice, not just in Australia but all over the world.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, and we know that, you know, my great wish is that if I walk down the street anywhere in the world in, you know, even in 5 years' time and I say to someone who's small and growing, who do you want to become as you grow? I'm not surprised if they answer and say to me, Jo, I want to change the world. I want to solve a big problem. I want to do that being an entrepreneur. And that's when I know my job's done.
Terrific. So for our partner audience, our primarily partner audience, what would be the go-dos that you would tell them to, what are the steps you want them to take after having listened to this?
I think the first thing is to activate what we're doing and be mindful that it's your children. You know, it's your next generation. They're under your roof. They're your sister's children, your brother's children, they're your grandchildren. They're the children of CEOs. They're the children of people who collect garbage. You know, they're the next generation that want to see the world through a different lens. These kids are not seeing race or gender as barriers unless we teach them that they are barriers. So I think the call to action is, the first thing is, when you speak to a little person, don't ask them what they want to be when they grow up. Ask them who they want to become as they get older. Because by asking who they want to become, you can uncover their passion. And if you uncover their passion, that can be guided into any career that they wanted to be guided into. The jobs of today will not be around in the future. 50% of the jobs created now and the titles that we have will not be in existence. And if we can move our minds away from that and towards what will be in the future and what will technology create in the future, then if you look at your own businesses as partners, you'll be able to see inside them and see where your skill shortages of the future are going to be and start thinking about that today, because this next generation, again, will become what they see.
Right.
And so we've got to show them what they can be. I don't think it's going through an hour of career choice at school or at university. I think it's actually opening up your businesses and inviting people that are studying at high school age to come and look at a working business, to come and talk to the CEO, come and talk to the chief marketing officer, come and talk to all levels of the business, so that young people can see what you do every day and how you do it and what the challenges are that you're faced in that position, what you did to get there, what you love about what you do and what you don't love about what you do, and how it makes you feel doing it. And I think that's the real experiences that they're seeking. Obviously activating through inspiringrarebirds.com and getting as many young people as we can globally to learn entrepreneurship. I don't think it matters whether they're going to work in a technology company in the future, whether they become a nurse or a doctor or a pilot. I think the skill and the mindset of that is just so valuable, because it's the creation of thinking around problem solving, logic and creativity, and we're using it's a way to enable creativity to flourish versus getting into those four walls and being hammered into place and, you know, being suppressed in creativity. You know, entrepreneurship allows it, and that allows big problems to be solved. From a women's entrepreneur perspective, for a partner, it is, you know, revisit your client list and see how many female entrepreneurs you're servicing and what you're delivering to them, and ask, if you're not, why aren't you? And start to engage with that tribe, because they are making all the financial decisions in their businesses. They are writing the check, so to speak. They are determining what delivery partners they work with. They're determining every single major decision that has a bottom line effect in their companies. And if all of your clients, or the majority of your clients, are male-led companies or male-led decision makers, you're doing yourself out of a lot of business.
Right.
That's the bottom line there from a financial perspective. But also, you should practice diversity and inclusion in your client base as well. And, you know, it should be that your services can be accessible to anyone, regardless of gender. And I think you're responsible for getting amongst that tribe and understanding how they think and seeing where they are and how they operate. And that means going to things where women entrepreneurs are prevalent and, you know, going to Rare Birds events and being a part of it, because if you've got a great service and a great business that enables them to grow themselves or their business, to make more money or to increase margin or lower cost, then you're going to make a lot of money doing that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my calls to action. Probably the last thing is we're always looking for amazing ambassadors all over the world. We've only just announced that program, and I'm looking for people that are, particularly Microsoft partners as well, who are either male or female-led organisations who are entrepreneurial by nature, who believe in the vision of 1 million more women entrepreneurs by 2020 and the mission to give every woman globally the opportunity to be an entrepreneur by choice, and who's willing to walk the talk with us. Mm-hmm. Because I see a lot of companies who talk the talk really well, where these things tend to be an add-on or a tack-on, when I think it should be part of mainstream business. And so we're looking for ambassadors that can share this message with us globally. I think finally, it's a change of the script. It's starting to look at women as very capable financial makers, change makers, decision makers. And when they do sit at the table with you, just don't assume they're the note taker. and ask them for their story and get them to share your story. And I think by understanding what's under the bonnet, so to speak, you'll find some remarkable women doing remarkable things. And from a service perspective, a delivery perspective, in the past, and I'll give you this really short anecdotal story, but when I thought about doing some capital raising very early on, probably 6-7 years ago, I used to get emails from people all over the world, particularly from the US and the UK, wanting to meet with me, and the emails would start, "Dear Mr. Burston." Oh. And that was because my name's gender neutral, but the assumption was that I was a man, and so there was a unconscious bias going on just in starting an email. And my call to action is get to know the person. If you really want to do business with them, the relationship starts with a one-to-one connection. It starts with a human connection. If you become someone that I value or I trust or I respect, then it's not just my business you get the business of perhaps 30,000 other women around the world once I start to promote what you do. Right. So we're getting a lot of approach now from Microsoft partners and other partners around the world who want to do business with this group and this demographic. And I strongly encourage you to pursue that, because women that have great experiences with suppliers tell other women. And women that have bad experience with suppliers tell other women. But there's a lot of opportunity there, and I don't think it's been really fully tapped into. So I guess working with Microsoft, we want to try and bring our 4th title to life in the US and share 50 influential women entrepreneur stories from the US, bring the education to the US and roll that out as well as the mentoring program, but really build the community to make it very, very inclusive and to make it open to government, academia, large corporate and entrepreneurs to be a part of.
Great. Well, it's a fantastic mission.
Thanks.
Really inspiring story.
I love what I do.
Yeah, I can tell. And it's really meaningful. So thank you so much for joining us and doing this podcast with us. Really
it's my great pleasure. And just remember, if she can, I can.
Thank you.
Check out the other podcast episodes in this series to learn more from Microsoft Partner Network thought leaders. Keep in touch with us via LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube by searching for the Microsoft Partner Network. And be sure to follow us on Twitter with the handle @MSPartner. And if you like the podcast, don't forget to rate and review it.